Okay guys, so we're gonna talk about standing leg lock defense. It's really important that we keep things standing when we're in a leg lock if we can. Good leg lockers, they wanna break you while you're on your hip. So we'd like to keep it standing as much as possible. There are times where you see guys be able to reach the heel here, and you guys might even remember Gordon Ryan versus Roosevelt Souza, like 2022 ADCC, he finished him there. He didn't have to get finished there though. Other than the fact that maybe Gordon has the best mechanics in the world, there's always an option to roll through. So if I were to get reaped and he grabbed my heel, we start rolling through, and now we're back on the hip. This is where it would have gone if Roosevelt hadn't have been worried about Gordon's mechanics, okay? So we can always stay standing, and we would prefer to if we can, because it's very difficult for them to get the breaking pressure they need if we're standing. So from a single leg X, the biggest thing that we want to try to do is make sure that we don't get knocked backwards and we don't get reaped forward. That's the game that he's playing with us. So if we have our head over our hips, he can point his knees and knock me backwards in this direction, and now I'm back on my hip. Conversely, if I'm too far forward, he reaps me over and exposes my heel, and now I have to roll through like we just did. So this is the game he's playing where if he puts me backwards and I overreact and go this way, he reaps me. If he reaps me and I go backwards, he brings me back, and now I'm on my hip again. So we need a stance that covers both of these problems. So the stance that we're gonna do is we're gonna have our leg far away from him. We do not want him to grab the secondary leg. Everything is so much easier for him if he has both of my legs. He can put me on the ground very easily. So now we wanna step this out. We wanna have a really wide stance, a strong stance here. And what we're gonna do is lean slightly forward so that he can't put me backwards. And I'm gonna take my knee and bow it this way so that it's very difficult for him to turn it and start reaping me. So I bow it out, but I don't wanna be over my hips where he's gonna put me back. So I put my shoulders past my hips. So we're in this type of position right here. Now we're stable, we can start working. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this wrapping hook off of my hip. So I bring my hips forward slightly, pop it off my hip, and now I hold on to it. If I don't hold on to it, which a lot of people don't, he could put it on the ground if he's good, and he'll take this, he'll bridge off that foot and bump me forward, and now he can throw it back over, and he can start reaping me again. He can go expose my heel for a second time, any kind of number of difficult things for me. So we wanna make sure that we hold onto the foot once we take it off. We hold onto it as long as possible right here, and now we can either front step or back step. Most of the time, you're gonna be able to push the shin down and back step over the legs, and you wanna turn in this direction all the way to the shoulder line. I don't wanna end up right here where he has a second shot at throwing into my legs in some kind of weird position. So I wanna go all the way back here. Now he tries to throw in, it's very difficult for him, and I'm holding onto his shins. If I'm holding onto his shins, this is a very, very tiring position for Juice. He has to completely rotate his body around to get his legs back in front of me, and I'm actually melting in here. This is actually draining his battery a lot. So when we're talking about creating a differential in the work rate between the top and bottom player, having your hands on the shin is a great position. So again, we're right here. We have our leg away from him so he doesn't grab it. I have my shoulders past my hips a little bit, and I bow my knee out. Now, I wanna grab the wrapping hook with two hands. I pop it off my hip and I hold onto it. Now, I wanna backstep. If I can't backstep, for whatever reason, it's really strong, it's sticky, I can go forward and front step around to the outside. And I come back here, grab the shins again. Now, once we're to the shins, what we don't wanna do is just crash back onto his knees, and he has his guard back. He can put me into danger here. So what we wanna do is move and put my head down onto his hip line and bring my shoulders to his hip line. I grab around his hips and I get into this tight north-south pin position. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about getting out of outside Ashi. This can be a problem because we can't backstep here, right? We can't just go backwards. It's not gonna help us. It's not like a Rimi Ashi. It's not like a single leg X. So when we get into an outside Ashi, a really easy way to get these off is to bring his knees below your knee line manually with your hands. So what I'm gonna do is, normally we talk about keeping our leg out, which is important. And we wanna have that same stance that we talked about, bowing our knee and bringing our hips behind our shoulders like this. So we wanna be in this strong stance still, but when we're ready, what we're gonna do is take both of our hands on the top of the knee that's closest to us, and we're gonna bring our foot really close and wedge it underneath of his back. So I raised his hips up off the ground and I wedged it behind his back so it doesn't fall back down. And it's only gonna be here for a second. I don't wanna keep it here because then he can grab my leg, he can put me down just like we talked about. So I wanna have it out far, initially, and then when I'm ready, I put my hands here, wedge it underneath of his back, and I start shoving this down below my knee. Once it's below my knee, I can put pressure onto his knees. I'm starting to fold him into this pass. We can end up in power rides here, where I have a leg ride type of formation where I have my knee over his knee. And I can take my other leg, hook it inside of his leg, and start splitting him open in this direction. So now I'm totally inside of his legs. His legs are pointing to my left. I want to go and grab some type of upper body control, and I want to make his face point in the opposite direction. This makes people very unathletic to have their spine contorted in this direction. So I have his face facing to my right, and I have his legs turned all the way to the left. People start panicking here. Oftentimes they'll come up onto their elbow, and they'll try to prop up onto the elbow and build out. So we'll prop up onto this. And now we can go grab the wrist, feed it to our other hand, and put him down, Khabib style, Dagestani handcuffs. Start coming up, taking his back, throwing our hook over, and sitting through for the win. So another standing situation that can occur, less common, but it does happen, is that someone throws in a cross Ashi. So what Juice would like to do is have this leg threaded through behind my hamstring and this one to trip me. He pulls this one to his chest, he extends and chops this one down. I fall down here, and if we fall back far enough, my heel is completely exposed in this direction. I don't want to be on this hip. This is a very easy win for him. He's able to grab my heel right away. So we need to have a good stance again. This time he throws it in. He gets into that same cross Ashi position. What we need to do immediately is take this off my hamstring. We need to take this off so I can back step around this other leg. So he has them both in position. I take this off, I step around, and now again, we're gonna do it a lot like the outside Ashi. I start shoving this back down. And once it's shoved down and crushed, I'm gonna take my knee over it and start sprawling out. I go hip to hip with him. And now when I'm hip to hip, I can have two different directions that I can go. I could either take my hip and bring it over and point my knee down into the pocket of his hip and come back over to pass, start pointing his knees back away. Or once I land hip to hip with him, like we just showed from shoving it down, I could just come back out, put my hand here, come back around to the other side and pin him here with double underhooks.